So we were writing songs like crazy, and sometimes I wanted to have really good recordings of them. So I had a big surprise coming up for Matt. You remember?
Boy, I do. Steve had helped a friend of his. Unbeknownst to me, he had previously helped a friend, Mike Green, set up a 16-track recording studio. Now, I say this like it's magical. You've got a 16-track recorder on your iPhone now. In those days, 16-track machine was what, $50,000, $60,000 in 19?
It was the holy grail.
That's right.
Was what everybody wanted to record their band or whatever with. Yes.
That's right. And those recording studios were quite expensive, and they used 2-inch tape. In 1979, a 2-inch tape reel was probably $200-$300.
Yeah. It was somewhere around between $100 and $200 for one of those things. So yes, I used every inch of it. It's like when we finished one song, we just had a few inches of tape.
Yeah, that's right.
And we went to the next
one. It was expensive tape. Now, these recording studios in those days were incredibly expensive. But Steve, by helping Mike set the studio up, had keys to the studio. Now, Mike gave Steve free access to the studio, but there was a caveat.
Slight catch.
And what was that caveat?
That was that we could use it from when everybody left until the next morning. So usually somewhere around 11 o'clock at night until, 8 o'clock the next day or something, 8 or 9 o'clock the next day. So that's when we took on our vampire mode, and
that's right.
And we were there all night.
Now, what I didn't realize is there was a reason Steve did not tell me about this immediately. Steve, can you tell them why?
Yeah, the problem was a lot of people thought it would be pretty cool to see the inside of a 16-track studio. Now, I would want to go down there and record. I was going in there to work. I had stuff I wanted to get done. People would spend, an hour or two helping me out, and then they'd want to go home. And we had just started, or I hadn't really made any progress. So I was always reluctant to take anybody down there because it was a huge waste of my time. It was a long drive. And I wanted to get stuff done, and then we'd get there and somebody would want to go home. I needed somebody who wanted to stay there and was just as into working through the music portions of it, or the music aspects, just as much as I was.
To the end.
To the end. Until they kicked us out the next day.
And I will say that was the pattern. Steve and I would get there, and we would kind of wait for everyone to leave, which, like Steve said, was at the earliest around 10 p.m., at the latest probably around midnight.
Yeah.
And then we would go in, and in those, again, things weren't as automated. I remember going through this big foot locker, thousands of cables of every type and every sort, and you got to rewire everything. So literally, it takes an hour to set things up the way you want to get it set up. And we would do that, and we would record all night, and we would be in this giant mix board. And it took both of us, it was almost like playing an instrument. It took both of us to practice the mix down. And we would get probably about we would probably get a song done with tracks. We would learn that night the best we could on how to mix it. And we would stay there until the people started coming, and we'd squeeze in a few extra minutes until they just said, "We need that mix board. We need you out of here." And we would leave, and we would come back the next night, wait for him to leave. That was usually the weekend. And we would do 2 straight days of this. And I'm telling you, we got punch drunk sometimes.
I do remember some of the tracks where people wanted to leave, and we needed somebody to press the record button for us to go. And this, you have to understand, there was a studio live room, which is where we tracked our instruments, and then there was a control room, and they were completely separate rooms.
Soundproof from each other.
And I remember one recording where Mike was leaving, and I just remember he was walking out the door. I was going, "Mike," he goes, "the tape is rolling." So we started recording.
Now, this was Steve's big surprise for Matt, introducing him to the 16-track studio, where he really began to teach me more and more and more about how to lay down tracks and how this influenced, really, really affected my songwriting, not just laying down tracks, but, what a song could do. I think on our next, the next video of the, what happened next after we met will be how Steve left Kansas City, kind of left me there like an orphan, and how we reconnected. I hope you enjoy some of these old stories. If you do, don't forget to hit the like button. The YouTube algorithm really likes it when you hit the like button. If you haven't followed us, please do. For now, until next time. Till next time.
The garden where we sang and walked today is marked with body chalk, where my dreams died and fell. How does love become a curse, or a rich man die from thirst, or heaven become hell? You told me that you
Brought to you by Ben Crandall's Bitter Apples. They're cheap because they taste just awful. That's Ben Crandall's Bitter Apples, when you can't afford the good ones.